Yes. Senior Counsel Oraro, please, or is it Gatia?
My senior is beckoning my team. Do you allow us?
Yes. 5 minutes.
Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice, distinguished judges of the Supreme Court. Actually 3 questions were asked that are relevant to our submissions yesterday, paraphrased as follows. 1, if the National Security Advisory Council 4 knew the results before they went there, and 2, why would the result not be announced the next day to build consensus, and 4, what would be the effect of the non-involvement of the 4 commissioners in the verification and tallying vis-a-vis Article 138(3)(c). Our response is as follows. 1, it is our submission that all factors point to an inescapable conclusion that the 4 members of the National Security Advisory Council, by the time they went to the Bomas of Kenya National Tallying Center, and by the time the head of public service placed a call on the returning officer of the presidential election, by that time they knew. And this is our evidence. By the morning of the 15th, letters had been issued by the returning officer of the presidential election, Mr. Chebukati, to all the presidential candidates and members of their family to be at the National Tallying Center for the declaration of results at 3 p.m. on that day. And my client already had received that invitation. I believe the other presidential candidates had those letters. And therefore, they knew by the time these state officers went to the National Tallying Center, they knew that the verification tallying had been completed, and what was pending was the declaration of the final result. It is our submission, Chief Justice, distinguished judges of the Supreme Court, that these 4 went to the National Tallying Center not for any other reason but to try to interfere with the declaration of results and thereby try to alter the sovereign will of the people of Kenya, which had already been verified and tallied in accordance with Article 138(3)(c). 2, it is our response that the results could not be announced the following day because, according to the affidavit of the chairperson of the commission, and I'm using the word chairperson on advice by Justice Ndungu, which I agree with entirely, that by that time, it was not possible for any form of consensus, because then the follow-up question was, I think from Justice Lenaola, why, for example, the returning officer would not have waited for an extra day, which he had, to build consensus on the 4 walk-away commissioners. It was not possible. It was very clear that the intention was to try and veto the will of the people, and therefore the chairman had to declare those results. Number 3, the 4 who left also, their colleagues had been injured. And so the chairman had, in our view, make the announcement that day because of the gravity of the situation. Finally, The question that this court ought to ask itself is whether the walking away of 4 commissioners at the tail end of a process which they have admitted was complete, except the declaration, can veto the sovereign will of the people of Kenya. Can the walking away of commissioners at the tail end of a process they have been involved in be the basis of vetoing the right to franchise in Article 38 of the Constitution, which is the expression of the voter? Thank you, and we prayerfully submit.